Okay, we'll call this meeting to order with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, does everybody have their mic on? Perfect. All right, first up is the approval of our agenda. Are there any modifications to make? I have a list, yeah. You want me to read them?
Yes.
So I'd like to add 6G, which is resolution 24-05. And I'd like to add 6H, which is discuss board meeting dates. Any other modifications or changes? All right, hearing none, we will approve the agenda, and we are actually going to immediately go into executive session under ORS 192-6602H. And then we will come back into open session after executive session at 19:01. Okay, we are going to go back into regular session at 17:25. And thank you everybody for waiting with us. Nathan, can you make sure that Russ is able to thank you? All right, so first up is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Snickle.
Vote. Yes.
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 Thank you. Patron comments. Anything to you, Laura? No? Any hands up online? I only have one audience member. You want some patron comments this evening? Okay, well then let's move into reports this evening.
On my report, you can see I added the super goals. The ones we talked about at the last work session, they are now on the website, so you can access them as well. My super November report, title budget narratives, we're done. Mrs. Shunk and I have continued to work on submitting a plan. We're trying, currently Elsie has a Title I targeted assistant school, which means that we have to have, in our Title I monies, we have to have criteria on which students that we would focus those monies to only. It could be a school-wide piece. We are changing that, our plan to a school-wide, because based on our data that we've seen, historical and this year, and just in general, we want to be able to help the most kids. Even though it's a small amount, it's still enough that, you know, like when we talk about services, we're not just saying, here's the 20 kids that get to use them. It's services that we can provide for all. The SIA annual report, I will be doing that tonight, real quick and easy. Mr. Staley and I will finish the report. This is a part of it. The other part is the budgetary reports that we'll finish by November 30th. And give it to ODE integrated guidance. ODE gave us the returned with their reply to our application and clarification. So for some clarification, so I'm working on that with the SD and some other contacts throughout the state, resubmitting it, and then hopefully we'll move on to the next stage, which will have to come in front of the board. It's the longitudinal growth targets, and so we'll have to work with ODE to create some common ones that they agree with and we agree with, and then we'll come in front of the board to approve those. The facilities, we're working on completing the bathrooms, pulling up the temporary fencing. We're putting fencing around the CTE swimming pool. Is what I like to call it. However, the old fencing actually was from CB Construction, and we asked them when they were done to take it, and so we are now putting up temporary fencing on the district's dime until we get that started. Hopefully and talking with the Giggies, who won't be here today because they left their report and pretty much like we're slowing down. Pretty much we're hoping that we can start the beginning construction in February of 2024 of the building. And then Synergy, we're just kind of still working on implementing. There are some issues with setup that we are going to work on in the spring. The EST went, here's all your options, and that was a horrible move. So we are working on ensuring that as we learn these options and go through them, that we are going to make those more specific to us. And so that's what I've been doing all month long, on top of, you know, being a principal. And then I wanted to add, let me make sure I'm not, where am I?
Back button.
I probably. I also, I don't know where not. I gave you the attendance report. I actually appreciate that we get to give these to you all. One of the things that Laura, Nicole, and I found as we were looking through attendance is that we needed to make sure we had a common theme because, like I said, the EST were like, and here's everything that you could ever do with Synergy, and then we had to rein it back to fit us. So you can see that some of our percentages went up because we did some cleanup. But I do think as well, the longer we get into school, we are going to see some of those percentages go up as we create an environment that kids want to be engaged in. We are talking right now as we're cleaning up, working with Sarah Littlefield and Bart and Kayla Wilson about how do we really emphasize the importance of attendance. You know, everybody, I don't really necessarily like perfect attendance because everybody deserves a day or two. But if you're going to take, you know, a family vacation for a week, which is fine, then don't go to the grocery store with your mom 3 times a month. You got to kind of give and choose on your attendance piece. Now, please remember, regular attenders are 90% or above. So in our district, if a kid misses 15 days or less, they're considered a regular attender, which in jobs, you very rarely find a job that says, go ahead and miss 15 days and keep your job. So it's really about stressing the importance of being here. And we all know that there are extenuating circumstances, but we are going to show you this. This is from the beginning of the school year through the 6th of November. We are going to show you this because I think it's important for us to start looking at data that relates to kids. And I want you all to see, you know, where can we start pinpointing areas in which we can really prioritize things, prioritize our budget, prioritize resources, prioritize staff. Because I think it's really important for us to really, if we're going to put kids at the forefront, we need to look at data about kids.
Can I ask a question? there?
Yes.
Would it be problematic to ask if we could see this in a running like year, like September, October, November? Would that be?
Yeah.
I was just thinking it's kind of nice to see that trend because we can also see like when we dip or when we come up. And
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then, you know, I will tell you, we in education we like to call October Black October because it's the longest month. And then you hit November and you call it like sporadic November because you're
no school November.
yeah, no school November. And so October is a long month. And then you start getting back into April and May, and those tend to be long months too. So, like I said, I really want to start throwing data about kids in front of the board so we can really start talking about resources and, you know, policies and things like that. How can we support our getting our kids to school? Because we know when they're in school and we have increased attendance, we see increased achievement and growth.
Don't hit the back button.
Okay.
May I ask one question about attendance?
Yes.
So just wondering about, I guess this is more about the policy stuff that we should address later. When there are kids that are not regular attendees, is there personal outreach to the family to see if there's anything we can do to help them out to make their kids?
We're starting that. Sarah Littlefield and I are going to work with the ESD. And one of the things I think, you know, we talk about a family liaison. And I think one of the big issues, and especially in a small school, and I've seen this in other districts, is that people come to school, and if they've been to school in a certain small place and they didn't have a good experience, they don't remember good things about it. And so one of the things I like about having a position like Sarah's is it's non-confrontational, not a teacher, not an administrator. Hey, what's going on? Why is your kid not wanting to come to school? What can I facilitate to help you? You know, is your kid feeling as though you know, maybe they're getting picked on the playground and they're not telling anybody. And there's that conduit to be able to have that piece. And so Sarah and I are actually, and even Laura, we've been going around to other districts, like, what are letters that you sent home that are not like, and it's against the law not to send your kid to school, but hey, it's important. Here's some reasons why. There's issues. Here's who you can call. So we are starting to kind of build that system and process, because I do think it's important for that piece to have, like I said, not for a teacher or administrator to be like, why isn't your kid coming to school? But a very not like a very neutral person to be like, what can we do to help? And so yeah, we are building that. Sarah and I have been talking about that a lot. So, and then the state report cards came out. So this was for last year. This is our data. Like it or not, this is our data. So we are, again, I think it's really important for us to put data in front of the board to really start looking at what are our goals? How do we use money? Where are we, you know, are we looking that we really want to shore up maybe early literacy, and what some, you know, resources we can put at that, or we really wanted to look at on-time graduation. Please remember, some of these though are not from last year. So like, for example, when we talk about the regular, so everything on the top is from last year. The on track to graduate is from last year. The on-time graduation and the 5-year completion are from 2 years ago. So that's where I think when we look and we're like, oh, that 42% isn't correct, it could have been 2 years ago. And I think it's because we saw that online high school and all that stuff like that. So as we look, so the first one is overall the district for last year, the first page, first and second page. The second page is for the school, which for us is ultimately the same thing. But it kind of breaks it down. It does break it down by ethnicity, students with disabilities, things like that. In our district, in a district our size, we're not going to get really great data. You can see there's a lot of it says data unavailable. If you do not have 10 or more students in a particular subgroup, they don't actually give you it, because they say you can identify. It gives you a lot of identification purposes. So, you know, I have some of that data that we look at at a school and district level with Bart and myself and Heather and Kayla and Sarah and Tim, and we really kind of start dissecting those down a little bit more. But I wanted to show you those. We are going to put these on our website. Again, you know, I think it's important for us to be looking at this data so we can start saying, where do we want our money to go? What resources do we want to put it at? Is it about, do we need more staff, or is it about, do we need to give more professional development or things like that? So, you know, I think what this data tells us is that we have nowhere to go but up. And so ultimately it's also about focusing on where our priorities lie. Do we want to really work on attendance, things like that? So that is currently all I have as the super. My November report as the principal, I try to throw some pictures on you. They did a lot of stuff in October. We went on field trips to Davis Family Farms. Our 4 through 6 students went to Clemens Park, loved it. They hiked all day. It didn't rain. They were very happy when they came back. But the stories the 4 through 6 graders came back and told about the size of salmon they saw swimming past them when they were standing in the rivers in their waders, and the water samples they got to do, and you know what the water samples told them. They came back and talked about it for 3 days. I've heard multiple different stories. It was amazing. The little ones loved the Davis Family Farms. I got to see every single pumpkin that came back, big and small. And now their favorite thing is they want to know how they can get those donuts. And Mom's like, well, you can go back next year. So it was great. We've been doing the student of the month. So October's was Wonder. I didn't put November's because we hadn't announced it yet. But if you look at our Facebook page, it's on there. So we'll put it in the next round. What we do for the student of the month is they get a signed certificate, and then we give them a $10 gift card to Dairy Queen. And we make a big deal. Their parents got to come. It was great. They get their picture on our website and Facebook page. And then the last page, again, is student data. So the iReady lessons, this is K through 6. The iReady lessons, they work on them. And remember, the students K through 12 took diagnostic tests in reading and math at the beginning of the year. It's harder to do the lessons when you're in junior high and high school because of the time of classes. But what those diagnostics tell the high school and junior high teachers is kind of skills they need to work on in classrooms. And it also helps with special education students, helps the teachers kind of do those instruction, especially design instruction 7 through 12. Now K through 6, as a part of our MTSS/RTI program, this is another way to do some specific interventions with students and specifically in skills that they are lacking. And so what we have is we have lessons that they do every year, and those lessons are personalized to each student. Now, in the data and the studies that I already said, is that we want students on average to be working on their lessons for both reading and math individually 30 to 49 minutes a week. Anything above 30 to 49 minutes, you're going to see burnout because you're doing it too much. And anything below, they're not going to get the maximized piece. So last month, so in October, and we've been talking with teachers a lot about it, is you can see that 25% of our students are in that sweet spot. So we're really talking about how do we get that sweet spot to get a majority of our students. We want 80 or higher percentage in there. And so you can also see off to the side when students are completing lessons, that when they're doing lessons, now remember, they're not just like, if they're in second grade, they're not doing second grade lessons. They could be doing kindergarten lessons. They could also be doing fourth grade lessons, depending on where they were at. That we're seeing 94% of our students passing at a 70 to 100% rate in October, overall 95% of our students. What we know is that when we hit that sweet spot, and that's in math, that we're going to see more of those students reading, this one's math here, the top one's math, bottom one's reading.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
We're going to see more of those lessons being passed at a higher rate. The great part about it is if students are looking in a domain, fail a domain 2 or more times, it actually shuts the domain off and tells the teacher, hey, you need to actually sit down with this kid and go back through and have them do those things. So the top one is math. The top graph is math. The bottom one is reading. And you see we're getting a little bit better in terms of that sweet spot, but overall passing, only 83% of our students are passing at a 70. So we are giving these to teachers every month in my staff meetings. So we're like, okay, what do we need to do? What are some PDs we can give? We have actually a PD on Tuesday, so if teachers don't have conferences, they can go. If they do have conferences, we're videoing it. What can we do to really ensure, number one, you're getting that sweet spot, and number two, how do we get more kids to pass? And so it's a new concept. I'm throwing a lot of data at them, but we really need to do this. We talk a lot about, well, we have these RTI people. Okay, but what does it truly mean to do RTI? What does it mean when you have somebody sitting in front of them? Is 20 minutes a day, or do we have this other piece where people can work at another time? So we're not just getting 20 minutes a day, we're getting maybe 40 minutes a day of reading. And then, twice a week and 40 minutes of math twice a week or something like that, or more than that. The other thing that we did, and it was great, we had a couple of staff members who have students in the elementary who, when those students are gone, people are like, well, can you send work home with my kids? And sometimes it gets done, sometimes it doesn't. Well, so one of my staff members said, well, when my daughter was sick, I actually had her get on her iReady, and it was great because I actually knew she was getting things at her level that she could work at. And when I say lessons, these aren't somebody talking at you. It's actually like game-like, and they're actually a lot of questions that mimic the OSAS test, which 3rd through 8th grade and will take in the spring. And so we actually sent home for every student K through 6, how do you get onto iReady and what is your username and password? So if your student is homesick, you have access to that. But if you're like, hey, I want them to do something over Thanksgiving break, now you have access to that. Hey, I want something over Christmas break. Now you have access to that. So they also have access to do it at home as well. So again, I want to throw data about kids in front of you so we can start really talking about what we can do to set up systems about how we can support our kids the best.
Can I throw a concept in there for
Please.
you? I love the idea about keeping kids engaged during breaks. So future scope, and I know there should be some dollars, hopefully from the state for summer. Have we looked at how we can help kids in that space, not help, sorry, but keep them engaged over the summer, even using something like this. I don't know if that's a possibility yet. And really, that's really just, maybe you can chew on that, and think about that. not-
Well, and one of the things I will tell you is, yes, we're starting to think about summer programming. The hard part for us this summer is we won't have power to our campus for 3 weeks in July because we're doing the switch over to the switch gear. And so I looked at Chris and Nancy, I'm like, you can't do it in 2 days. And they were like, did you see our power grid? And so we actually won't have power. So Bart and I have been like trying to mull around, like, okay, so could we maybe use the library? Could we talk about having those community relationships? Because I do think, based on what I hear, I don't know how much we'll get or if we get any, there might be some summer school dollars. And so I don't want to not use summer school dollars if we can get them, because I do think it's a great way to engage our kids again. So yeah, we are kind of rolling around some of those pieces. But when Nancy and Chris, like I said, went, oh, it'll be like 2 to 3 weeks. It was like, what?
It's a big range.
Yeah, there's some
The
places.
library, the fire department.
I mean, the only hard part is what one of the biggest things that is great about doing summer programs is because then you can do summer breakfast and lunch programs. So in a lot of districts, what they do is they do your summer breakfast program. So from like 8 to 8:30, you run your summer programs from like 8:30 to 11:30. So a good 3 hours. And then you do summer lunch programs from 11:30 to 12 and you send them home. So we're also trying to think of like, how can we do, because you have to have a certain type of kitchen. So we're rolling that around. And it might even just be that we do something in June and then something in August. I don't know. We're just,
I would say something's better than nothing,
something's
right?
better than nothing. And again, I've been in before where I'm like, we're gonna get so much, not enough money to run anything from the state. And then they're like, oh, you get $70,000 to spend in 2 months. And you're like, oh God, what do you do? So you spend money. So I'm hoping we get a nice surprise and we can do something nice for the summer.
Talk to me about July
Mhm.
with a specific kitchen. So talk to me of what your needs are,
Okay.
because Eric can always come up to the cafe and, because it's a commercial kitchen,
Yep.
and we can put the food together up there. So
Perfect.
I'm definitely willing to help for that too.
Because I just think, we haven't done summer, to my knowledge, we haven't done summer lunch or breakfast program in a while. And I just think, what a sad piece, because that's a great way to bring kids together again and family. And it's not just school kids from here. It could be people just driving through town and being like, oh, I can feed anybody from 0 to 18. I have a couple kids in my car. Let's sit and meet people. And so we're rolling those things now.
Anyway, so just get that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool, awesome, thank you. All right, Miss Shunk, are you online? I think she is.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Yep, I'm
Hello.
here. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Nice to see everyone. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Hopefully. Oh, I don't know if I have. Oh, I do. Okay. Oh, that is not what I wanted to share. Oh, it is. Okay. Are you seeing the board report actually? Okay, good. Okay. So, yeah, I definitely want to send a big shout out to our families that support students at home. I added a picture below, way down here. This is in the first grade classroom. This is our first grade teacher, Miss Waverick. She does such a wonderful job bringing the learning coaches into the mix, and all of our teachers do, but I just happened to be in the classroom at the time. And some of our learning coaches are grandparents, and it's just really wonderful to see the participation and the support that happens in the online learning environment, which is very different. I was a brick and mortar educator, and so to see these parents and grandparents and sometimes aunts and uncles are the learning coaches, to see them involved is just really a wonderful thing. And so I'm sending, I guess in the beginning right up here, our highlights. I really want to share just how grateful I am to all the parents at home for doing the work. Another big piece that we've brought in is our systematic and explicit phonics instruction. And so you know, Krista touched on this earlier and bringing that phonics piece in, that early literacy piece, and really diving into that so that we're building strong readers. So in this picture, I happen to be in the third grade classroom, and they were working on identifying different word families. And this type of daily practice gives students the opportunity to build tremendous reading skills, compartmentalizing, looking, decoding all of these pieces, and then applying it to, you know, real world books when they're looking at their decodables. And so it's just been a really wonderful thing to bring in this early literacy phonics focused curriculum that we're using. And then, as Krista mentioned, iReady has just been a real big, huge positive change for us as well. And the neat thing for iReady being used both on the campus and in Learn at Home is that we have a common language and common experience that's happening. And so I'm really grateful that our Learn at Home teachers are able to collaborate, you know, hopefully in the future with the brick and mortar teachers. Considering everybody is only, you know, there's only single teachers at each grade level. So I'm hopeful that that will provide a really good space for collaboration between the two different programs. And what I want to add, that Student of the Month for us, this month we're focused on the character trait of ownership. And it's perfect timing with the conferences coming up and talking about goals. And iReady gave a lot of information about that too. So the teachers have talked with their students, and you know, they're able to look at the data with their students. It's student friendly, and talk about the goals and where they want to be, and really allowing, even down to kindergarten, allowing them to take hold of their own data and knowing what they need to do to, you know, close those gaps and build their build what they're doing. So it's perfect timing to have ownership. Last month was our character trait of reflection, and reflecting on, you know, mistakes, or reflecting on how we're doing really well. And so I'm really excited about that. Attendance and online, Krista touched on attendance. We're looking at the same thing, and how do we make sure that you know, we're tracking attendance, that we are communicating with our parents. Our teachers will send an email each day if the student is not in attendance. And as Krista mentioned, we don't send like, hey, you need to have your kiddo here, but really neutral, supportive, you know, connecting, what's going on, what can we do? And if it becomes an issue, then I make phone calls, the teachers make phone calls. And so just really making sure that we're connecting and sending the message that we care that their students are here every day. And that's about it from me. Any questions?
I don't hear any. Thank you so much for such a comprehensive report. And yes, thank you to those parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles that are all engaged. We know engagement increases success.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
All right. Mr. Rothenberger
He could not
passed it to
make
you.
it. He passed it to me. So he always he likes to give that his staff. He wants his staff to always give one highlight, and so I think they, you know, everybody did a great one. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight on is the graphic design. They were actually called by the Clemens Foundation to make a new logo, and so the kids actually we had like 10 to choose. They had 10 to choose from. And so Sue came over with, I think she brought them and gave them to the brothers, and they picked one. I don't remember exactly who it was, but it was really spectacular. Like I was actually like, when he showed them to me, he comes running over and he's like, look what the kids did. They were great. And so kudos to Mr. Lynch in the graphic design class. As you can see over there, we have some CTE projects. Yes, or 2 days ago, we had a representative come down and work on our CNC machine. Said we had to replace a couple parts. but they got it up and running and now they're making those metal logos and I mean, he came over and showed Laura and she was like, you have to come out and see this. They are amazing. And so they're looking at making some more, doing some inlay on wood, doing some, I don't know what he called it, but like putting it so they could actually color it. Do you remember what he called that? Kind of, but I don't, it was a special name.
He said patina, but then there's other stuff that there's a kit that he's ordering that has just a whole bunch of colors like greens and stuff like that, or you can make it look like copper, or you can make it look like rust. And he also was talking about with those flat designs being able to do a 3D thing so that the trees kind of pop out and the mountains pop out on it, things like that.
So yeah, they actually did that. So the CNC machine didn't work prior to Monday. And then after Monday, I mean, they just kept bringing stuff over for us to look at. And so he's been doing great with that. They've started the FFA. They've gone to some competitions just so the kids can like get a feel for it. You know, in English, they've been really, Miss Ellis has really been, you know, talking about let's read for fun. Athletics has been great. The fall sports is over. We're going to release the all leagues, but we're now into winter sports. The big thing with winter sports really is about how do we get now 4 teams into one gym and a play shed. And so we actually started an after school tutoring with 2 teachers Monday and Wednesday where they can come up. Mr. Rothenberg and I are going to go buy snacks and kind of get it so people have a place to go and they're not starving. They can come up into those spaces. And then I don't know, it's been really great to go around. You know, we've really, I think, you know, we're really emphasizing to both staff and students, we need to ensure that we're following expectations so that we're maximizing learning as much as possible. So put your cell phones away. You know, if you want to act a fool, you come out and you talk to Mr. Rothenberg, or if he's not there, you come talk to me and we talk about why it's important to be in class and not inhibit the learning of others. And so grades have come out. Kayla's done a great job with pulling kids in and being like, hey, what can we do to help you? Sarah's been great at it. Nicole's been great at it. Really at the high school level, we've been doing a lot of pulling in and saying, hey, you know, you need this for graduation, which goes back to the 9th grade on track. And so I would encourage you all, there's 2 other projects over there that the kids have made. I've been told we can't get rid of the toolbox or the stool because they're actual student projects and I have to give them back. But I'd encourage you all to go over and look at them. They're great. Like the stuff that's coming out so quickly is the sign. I was just like, holy crud. So
Are those other materials part of this presentation?
the ones, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So
what
we'll go
I
over that when we,
assumed.
yeah.
Okay.
So that is for the junior high school report.
That is so awesome. And I am loving that we're starting to see some CTE stuff come out. And I hope that there is some future mind melding on how we do business and fundraising and bringing in our community this way. Like kudos to our kids and teachers. And I hope that we can continue to see some more innovation there because that's outstanding.
Well, I know now
Gives
that
me all the feels.
we have the CNC machine. I know that Mr. Stevens has talked to a company in Corvallis who wants them to start using it to make different parts. I don't remember what the company's called, but he's been in contact with them, and so they want to come out and teach the kids exactly what they want and have the kids kind of start doing it for them. So
I don't know if it's too late or not, but if they're up and running and have a couple, I guess there's a holiday. There's the craft bazaar. I know that was successful raising funds for that program in the past. I'd buy ornaments and stuff.
yeah, no, it's been every day some kid walks in and says to Laura, look what we made. And we're like, but we're most accessible to them. I mean, when they drop metal, we know they drop metal because it sounds like it sounds like there's an earthquake. But yeah, no, so it's great. He's getting great, and Mr. Lynch is doing well, and I think there's definitely a different vibe. So we're working on it slowly but surely.
Okay, next up is financial reports. Mr. Staley. I knew you were just on the edge of your seat, ready to come talk to us about. No? Okay. Darn it.
I've already started the budget development worksheets and some data work. Start looking at a 2-year plan rather than just a 5-year plan. Looking at the revenues, you'll see there's a lot of lines in there that have nothing to do with dollars that were budgeted. That there's no such thing. So
It's really hard to hear the audio there. Sorry.
Oh, I don't think
On,
it's
got turned on.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you.
Get a
Hold it
hold
down.
of it.
There it is.
There you go.
okay, very good. There's a purpose not having it on. Sorry, Russ.
Much better.
Anyway, property taxes will be coming in November. They're not reflected there. People probably have already got their property tax statements and probably fell over when you got them. And everybody does. But anyway, those will be reflected next month, and most of the payments come in the first couple months, and then people pay in quarters after that. The state will be sending out projections in January, adjusted based on the ADM for the previous year. So the state school support is being paid at the same amount every month right now until we get to January, and they'll make that adjustment. We did our first quarter billing to WLA, Willamette Learning Academy, leadership. I got it. Anyway, and so that's what that 88,000 on there. So we bill them for their certain percent, and then we get 90% or 80% reimbursement from the state on the transportation. There's funds in the LGIP. You've probably noticed there's a good fund balance right now that we're projecting, which is definitely necessary, as I reflected last financial statement, because the student population is dropping, and that's going to have a big impact on the funding next year. So your cash balance is important to keep the continuity of the school district rather than going off a cliff. And so we're trying to protect those dollars, so we keep the same staff until we all level out and get everything correct. Other than that, that's the revenue. We've met with Krista can go further in depth on that, but we just got a grant from Willamette ESD, the Promise Grant, and that's what's on here, where you see flow through dollars from the state. That's, I mean, from the ESD, and that's from Willamette ESD. Last year it went through Lynn Benton, but this year it's going through Willamette, and so that's $10,000 that just came through today. I think. Can you just get the contract today? Yeah. Other than that, is there any questions on the revenue? On the appropriations or expenditures, these reflect athletics now after the board approved moving the appropriations. This is reflecting all athletics, and the gate admissions are on the front page. But athletics is only 1/3 of it right now. The first fall, you have winter and spring yet, and those will be on there. And I think there's a track coach behind me. So they're not reflected in here right now. It's only the winter. So that's why you see that surplus. You'll see some overages in there. We've met with the ESD. Krista and I did with their administration group, 2 against 10, I think it was. And we went over, and if you understand how the ESD works, they have basic services, then they have tier 2 services, and then you get so many dollars based on your ADMW. And of course, LC has a lower, and we're losing ADMW, so that dollars are going to go down again. And then you buy services because they are providing it district or county wide or whatever region wide. So it's easier for us to buy a portion rather than having a staff member. And so those are reflected in there, what we paid. That's the psychological services or behavior, and then the business services that was there for payroll. And there's a couple others. But
They were like, bring your district administrative team. And I was like, Dawn, you have to come that day because it's literally just you
yeah,
and
there was
me."
just the 2 of us. So it was interesting. But it went well, and they're a good team. And they went over all their services, and we asked questions and made adjustments, and Nathan was involved, and we've made adjustments to that, and
We were able to save money
and
based
we-
on services.
because
so.
we analyzed, do we really need that service, or we need this instead of that? So it was a good process. With that said, I've condensed it. You'll see some, you don't see all the lines below, but as I shared before, budget law says you have to be within the instruction, the support services, and the other areas. That's what your guidelines are. You've adopted a budget. You have to be within those appropriations. And I'll be bringing a resolution before we do the budget to move dollars around, so there is a comparability between this year and when we do a budget. And I'll explain what we're doing, like moving tuition into a right account where it's supposed to be, or various things of that nature. That is the general fund. Right now, it looks like about a $5 million, $6 million ending fund balance. But like I told you, you're going to be using $1 million to $2 million each year. And you have negotiations coming up to meet staff needs. And so those dollars are necessary. Any questions on that? Just go over brief highlights on special revenues. Chris has kind of covered them. Title I is on there, she mentioned, but I have Title II and Title IV. Part of that, we have to move that out per the budget narrative, and so it's its own line. They can't be combined. Got a grant. Eric and Bart got a grant for equipment for after the bell, breakfast after the bell, and so they've already ordered that, about $4,000 for equipment for food service, which is good. So these grants keep coming through various, and they'll be added on here as we go through it. The one that's being completed right now is the asbestos abatement, and it has to be done by 12:30, and Krista and Keenan have been working on that, and that's getting all finalized. That's doing the initial testing, doing the management plan, and then doing the periodic requirement testing. So this is all going to be done by December 31st, and claim those dollars. They have to be into the ODE with the invoices prior to December 31st.
And we are able to actually plan out like every 6 months for 3 years, the asbestos testing, things like that.
Other than that, I will update as we go through. This reflects the new bus that you approved last time. And so that's in here, and that's been ordered and everything, the 20 passenger bus. So it helps on taking kids and various things, so you don't have to use a big bus. Going to the debt service, it's the same as really last month. The taxes will be coming in, and as I shared, I'm probably going into more depth of trying to help you understand as we go into the budget development. You'll have payments in December and you'll have payments in June. The interest is in December, interest in June, and principal, because you'll have all your taxes by that time to pay. That's why you always schedule it that way. You don't want to schedule it before you get your taxes in, or you're going to have a problem. Other than that, I've already discussed the capital projects, and Nancy and Chris have been monitoring the capital projects, and I'll be claiming all those dollars from the state. That has to be done by March. So now that they're getting run down, I'll work with Nancy and Chris and get all those projects that go to the state grant and match them up and finish the ESSER dollars 2 and 3 and go from there. So, and get those dollars back to the district rather than the state having those dollars. Last but not least, been working with Krista and Bryn Campbell. I don't know if you know her. She's accounts payable. She's great. And developing procedures. She's working with everybody. She's written plans on how to do things. She's my kind of person. I'm black and white. She is black and white. So we're developing procedures, and by the end of the year, we'll have them all there. And I think it makes accounting easier. I've given her the task to go through all the accounts and clean them up and provide that to me, because trying to minimize, you get too many accounts and it becomes a mess, and you really lose what the purpose of those are. And so she's going through all that right now and cleaning it all up, and working with Roxy and Laura, and we're getting procedures and doing things so we have a standard, which will make it easy. And working with Nathan on all the techie stuff, he's great. So any questions?
Thank you so much for such in-depth information.
Yeah, just to help you.
Can I ask one question just about, for my own edification, I guess, a line item I don't really understand what it is, in expenditures 1288.
1288 charter schools. I don't know either. It's 21,000 there. It's budgeted and nothing's been charged. So to me, if it's not expended and it hasn't come through, it saves dollars for the end for our fund balance. And there's some others I have to clean up in there. We've gone through, but Bren is the knowledgeable person on how they've been expended before, and we're both learning together. So I will find out what was spent there before and why, and bring that to the next board meeting. That's a good question. Okay. I can tell you on most of them, but I don't know that one. So, okay. Very good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Enrollment. Ms. Nickel.
So just, as we promised before, we are putting our monthly enrollment in. And as of November 1st, order is at 203 currently, and learn at home is up to 90.
Thank you.
And then next is the safety committee, safety meetings. We started those, we had our first meeting in October. We went over earthquake and fire drill procedures, trained staff, both existing and new, on the procedures and the routes to take to get out of school. And we held our first earthquake fire drill, and that went well. Meeting minutes, if you want to see them, they're here. They're also posted in the staff room.
Thank you. Bond update.
So, pretty much what they were gonna say is in there. On your table though, I met yesterday with both Chris and Nancy, and then people from Soderholm. You can see the 3D renderings now. It's kind of becoming real of what the building will look like. In terms of colors, over there is the swath of colors, what flooring they're gonna use in the bathrooms, what colors are gonna be on the walls. Down to what sort of light, can't think what it's called, the window coverings will look like. I'm very happy with the renderings. I know Seth has worked really hard with them to kind of pare back to ensure that we're in budget as much as we can be. So the next step is in December, we'll put out the RFP. We know we have 3 contractors. They will be looking at this, and then they will come to us, I believe, in January with their bid, and I believe it's the lowest bid. And so one of the things I talked to Nancy and Chris, and we are still a little worried about, is coming over what we have budgeted. But they're pretty certain we're gonna get some good bids. And then once we pick in January, or the board picks in January, which ultimately will be it's a low bid. You don't get to pick, it's the lowest bid. I was like, so Chris, we starting in April? And he's like, no, we're starting in February. Like, we're getting it moving. Our hope is to have it done by school, but we can't promise. I don't know how it will act or what will happen when we don't have power. I don't know if they'll bring generators and things to finish, but I mean, pretty much once we get going, we're going. So these will be hung up in the front office. I think it's very important for community to be able to come in and see. And then at the OSBA conference, we talked with Marlene from Soderstrom, and they're gonna work on getting us maybe like a 3D video that we can give out so people can actually walk through it. So it's finally coming to fruition. So it's very exciting. I was very, the interior design, Chris said, oh, we're gonna have an interior design meeting. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be at this, but he literally laid everything out, and it's perfect. I think it's gonna fit what we need. And in fact, if you look at the very back, one of the last 2 pages, they even gave us the color of the outside, which I actually love. And so I told Mr. Rothenberger, like, we need to figure out how to paint the entire school. I just love the color. I love the look of it. So, yeah. So like I said, hopefully they're gonna send us these as PDF so we can post on our website as well. And we'll post on Facebook and everything. So, yep.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, well, let's jump into new business. We have a few action items this evening. So let's start with 6A, which is the GASB 8796. Will you give just a quick overview of this for the board?
I will have Dawn give him a quick overview for the board.
Come join us.
And the auditor is actually on as well.
Oh.
My support is online, I think.
Yeah.
David's on there.
It's David
Bledsoe.
B. Yep.
He's the genius on this, but just to go over it briefly, and then I'll pass it on to David to answer any question. GASB is kind of the oversight of financial accounting and giving standards, and the goal is that financial statements are comparable, and they provide a common basis for municipal bond analysis, lawyers and everybody to look at the same kind of financial statements and to make decisions. And usually you want a unqualified opinion. That means your statements have no variation, and they implement all the GASBs. But last year, your audit even it was qualified, and it was for GASB 75. And GASB 75 is for the accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits, and you need to do an actuarial every 2 years. And they look at your staff, their age, and OEB and the whole thing. And you put that in there because it's kind of a liability to the district. And you want to show that, but you didn't have that, so you had a qualified opinion. 2 more or 3 more came out, 2 more came out, and they come out all the time. And that was 75 and 87. One deals with leases, looking at the liability and putting it on, looking at your interest and various things. And you usually use a vendor to do that, to help you do it. It takes time to do it. And the other one is 96, which was dealing with technology and the agreements and looking at all those, the cost of the district and extending those and bringing it back. We're in November, and we didn't do an actuarial, so you're going to have a qualified opinion on 75 no matter what. The question is the value of doing this compared to what you're getting in return. And like I said in the thing, due to the time commitment by me, I guess it would be, and by the time by the auditor, where we're at, as well as contracting with vendor. There's like vendors out there that help bigger districts. Well, they have more staff, and they have more dollars. And so you're looking at a cost of even doing that, not counting the time, is between 8 to 20,000. And what are you getting in return? I personally don't see it, but that's just my personal opinion, because you're not going out for another bond, and you're still going to get your state funding no matter what. We have to have the audit in by December 31st to get our payment in January. So that's, I know that's where David is on that, and he has probably a lot of audits to work on right now. So we kind of summarized it in there. David's there to answer any questions. My recommendation is, because of the time restraints, and I also think a lot of smaller districts aren't doing it. They've already gone to their board, dealt with Amanda at Bandon. They're not doing it. Port Orford's not doing it. The same kind of small districts. I also think you learn from other districts when they're implementing them now, they go through all the main work and then you piggyback off of what that is we're all learning. So the issue is to have a qualified, well, you're still going to have an unqualified or qualified opinion. I don't personally think it's going to matter whatsoever because you're not going out for another bond right now. So, but if you have any questions, I have Dave here. He probably could add to it, be more articulate on it.
So you're recommending to opt out because there really is no beneficial
I think
benefit to us.
I think the cost outweighs the benefit. I'm looking at both the cost, $20,000 is $20,000, not counting their additional time and what it's going to take the staff here to do it and the short time frame where we're at.
Well, and can I add too, like, if we don't get our audit in by December 31st, we don't get our state fund.
You
state
don't get
school
it
fund
until you get it
January
in.
1st. So if that causes a delay because of your time and then the vendor's time and then the auditor's time, where the risk becomes greater, right? For that. For
Yeah,
our
well,
distribution.
you're going to have an unqualified, you're going to have a qualified opinion anyway on the one. And really another thing is we're trying to be transparent, bring this to you before. You could be blindsided and have an unqualified opinion, or a qualified opinion in January, February, and I didn't say anything to you. But I wanted to bring it to you so you knew what was up front and so that you weren't blindsided and that you were part of the decision. Any questions? Because I made him stay up tonight.
Well, let's say this. David, is there anything you'd like to add to Don's presentation or anything you feel like the board needs to know prior to going into a motion?
Sure. Just want to say hello as well. I haven't said anything quite yet, so I hope everyone's having a good evening. A couple points to add to kind of what Don explained. Broadly, the GASB board is who writes the accounting rule book, what rules to follow. As he mentioned, the whole idea is so everyone's following the same rules. So if you look at a packet of information about one district, they're following the same rules as another, so you can compare them. The standards do evolve as they recognize a need. The specific to the newest one we're dealing with, GASB 96, a conversation about software subscription liabilities would have been nonsensical 20 years ago. Now it's a bit more kind of on the point, as that's how curriculum is moving in addition to other items you do pay for. The whole idea is the board wanted to try to capture how much money are you going to have to pay over a certain period of time to get what asset to use, and reflect that on your balance sheet versus just expensing every year. To the extent that that particular information is valuable to anyone treating users of the financial statements, may or may not be really at the top of their list. Last year, we dealt with GASB 87, which redefined like leases, things like copiers, printers, buses, buildings. I dealt with one fairly large district that ended up with over 4 dozen paragraphs specifically about copiers. I don't think anyone really enjoyed reading those, but kind of what the standards want us to do. As Don mentioned, a lot of other districts are looking at essentially what it takes to deal with compliance with this. One item to kind of keep in mind is this is not a one-time time sink or a one-time cost. The requirement is to be complicit on a reoccurring annual basis. So every year you have to reevaluate those subscriptions. Look for new ones, look for ones that expired, look for those that you changed. So it's not that just that Don or someone else presumably would have to dump in a week or two's worth of time and money. It's really one more thing to add to the list every single year dealing with this. Last year, as you mentioned, was GASB 87. There were no leases that fell under that category, so we didn't really have to do too much work, and the audit letter was not modified for that. Just one point of clarification on that, the terminology we use is a bit nebulous. To break it down, unmodified is a gold star. Everything looked great. After that, we can modify it for different things. Last year, it was modified only to the extent that the GASB 75 for your pension liability, to kind of describe it, that portion wasn't done. Everything else looked great. This year, should you choose to go that path, it'll still say 75 because, as you mentioned, an actuary has not been engaged to do the work. And then we would tack on 96. I believe from conversations with Don, there's still no leases that qualify under 87. So that one essentially won't show up until there's anything that we didn't do the procedures for. It's been a bit of fun this year across the state dealing with this. A lot of districts, small and large, are both looking kind of down the barrel of what compliance looks like deep into November. You're not the only board I've spoken to this week about it, so not the only ones kind of grappling with what to do with it. Happy to answer any questions anyone has about it, or go into as deep into the weeds as you like about it.
So do I understand that this is something we're going to have to address on an annual basis?
Yeah, so yeah, the whole rule kind of, the idea here is it's trying to evaluate what software you're going to pay on it over a period of more than a year. So if you have like a 2-year Adobe license, let's say you pay $500 a month, it's trying to capture the value of the payments you haven't made on your financial report as of June 30th. Correspondingly, getting an asset, you can use Adobe for 2 years. So it's trying to value that. The math, to be honest, is not the hard part of the valuation. It's the big staff time and effort to go in there and actually eyeball everything that may need to be applied and then work through the 70 odd pages of rules about what to do in different scenarios. The math, once you get there, it's essentially making up like a bank loan mortgage amortization schedule. If you're going to make a payment on X date for X dollars, that's honestly the easy part. The hard part is the weeks of effort it takes to get there. But yeah, it is reoccurring annually.
Any other questions? All right, so I think, thank you both for your time, but I think we can entertain a motion.
I'll move to opt out of GASB 87 and 96 for the fiscal year ending June 2023. Can I-
Oh, discussion, sorry. Oh, yes.
I just want to mention that it seems on the face that this would be good information to have a handle on. And I wonder if this might be something that we would opt out of and maybe work toward actually doing it next year, having enough time to work.
That's why I said in there, you know, districts are implemented and you're learning as you're going. One thing I want to do is get it for the actuarial, get an estimate cost, what it's going to be rather than estimating, you know, because we're a smaller district. So I agree with you. I think due to the shortness of time, it's difficult this year, but we have time right now to plan for next year and put those items together and see if it's to bring it back to the board and work with David on that or the vendor and find out what the actual cost would be.
Yeah, on that note, it's not something that if you decide this evening not to deal with it, you can't look at it forever. It's more so just for, as Don mentioned, from a transparency of we're not gonna deal with it this year. I have some districts that have decided not to deal with it this year, but to evaluate it next year. I have some that after they're still going through the process of doing it, they've decided already that they're not gonna deal with it next year. Since it was too big of a headache. So it's really just, do we want to implement a standard for this reporting date? If you wanted to, for the next 15 after it, that option's still available. It's just as of this report cycle, will the information be included?
Any other discussion? Yes.
Muted up.
Should be able to unmute. Russ, can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Laura was calling for your vote for
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you, David.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
OSBA bylaws amendment. I'm struggling to load, but just an overview on this is we are part of OSBA. We do have a say when they make their adjustments to their bylaws, and we can vote and turn that in to them. So
ultimately, when we went to the OSBA, part of what they're asking their body to do is ratify the resolution to amend the 2018 bylaws as presented. One of the major things they're doing in the bylaws is updating language one, but also adding a rural caucus, a school board member caucus. And so you'll see there is another resolution from OSBA on that, but they are adding that to there. So I just added the attachment, not only what they want the bylaws to be updated to, but also language on what is changed and why.
I would like to.
We can't. It's actually due by mid next week. We have to put in our vote by then.
Approves OSBA's resolution to amend the 2018 bylaws.
There a second? Discussion?
I would like more time.
Other discussion? Press?
Yeah, there's like a audio thing. Yeah, sorry. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's like kind of like a fan noise or something, and it's hard to hear.
That's what it is.
Is it? Maybe it's that.
Russ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jamie? Yes. Lauren?
Yes.
Deb? No.
Yes. All right. Next up is our OSBA bylaw amendment. No, sorry, rural caucus one. Sorry, my stuff's having a problem loading this evening. But rural caucus, and this is our rural caucus that's proposed. Again, this creates the caucus, allows the boards of people to be able, and then there's multiple districts for support that are automatically opted in, and then additionally, other boards can petition to be opted for a seat at their board as well. So this again, can you remember the numbers? It's a district of in here.
So the district has to have service to a district population density of less than 200 people per square mile and or total school district population of less than 20,000.
It is opens up some funding options also to support rural school boards to seek some reimbursement for training expenses, as well as some money to go into
Hey, hey
advocacy.
guys, like, okay, something's really bad with the audio, and I don't know what it is, but when you're talking, like I just can't hear anything. It's just like this ambient, like rah, 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 rah. So something changed in the last little bit, but I don't know what it is. Just so you know.
Not only funds to rural schools cover the cost of their board training, but as well as support advocacy for rural schools in the legislature. So I think as time goes on, that's very critical. I motion that the LC School District approves OSBA's resolution to amend Oregon School Boards Association statistic said at the rural school caucus lunch that they attended was that 65% of districts in Oregon are actually considered rural districts. So the fact that we have not had a seat at the table is really kind of unfortunate. And so again, I think it's very, very critical, the success of rural schools.
Well, and I'll add to that there was. It's really important ourselves to remember. Legislature is who makes the laws and gives the need to the Oregon Department of Education to pass down. I think education has that same space. Change for our students.
Hey, so I may as well just like sign off because like as soon as you talk, I can hear nothing. I don't know if anyone else online has the same problem, but like literally I can't hear any audio, so I don't really feel comfortable like voting because I really can't understand what's being said. So
Russ, can you hear me now?
yeah, but when you speak, like there's this noise that picks up that wasn't happening earlier. I don't know. It's like a helicopter sound kind of, but it's like to the point I just can't. I can only hear the background noise. So
Hey, Russ, do you maybe want to try to get out and come back in and see if that helps? They're saying the same thing as well. Okay.
I mean, it's just I just being able to vote, like I couldn't even hear you ask my name, so I feel like I kind of it's pointless to like try to vote. I can't hear, so
Is this better now, Russ?
no, it's still happening.
Off and turn it back on. Say when I was online.
Can you hear us now, Russ?
I mean, I can hear it's just that sound is like overpowering the conversation. So if you're talking, I can hear a couple words. I just can't hear like the whole conversation. You can keep trying. I mean, I'll try to listen the best I can. I'm fine with voting on the rural thing because I think it's a good thing for the caucus, but I just want you to know that I really can't hear the conversation. So
So there's a motion and a second. And there's been discussion, so we'll go to.
Yes.
Laura, did you ask me? Yes.
Okay.
Laura, I don't know if your mic is on. Well, because I can't hear anything you're saying, but it's maybe it's that.
I muted it thinking
Oh, okay.
that's what changed the noise, but, and then I forgot to turn it back on, sorry.
Okay. Maybe.
All right, next is our English novel surplus.
It's self-explanatory. Novels, Ellis. Some of them they don't read anymore. So I put on district policy B, which talks about disposal of district property. Ultimately, if you guys allow us to approve disposal, we can give them away or throw them away, depending on, you know. I would not have. I would probably donate them if we were going to do it. I would not sell them because ultimately, I think
It didn't really say why we're getting rid of them. Are we getting rid of them just because we have too many, or
yeah. So we have too many, and some of them they don't read anymore. And some of them, like for example, Frankenstein, we have 3. So there's no reason for her to have it because you want class sets. And I'll be honest with you, when you talk about the new ELA standards, they're going away from reading of books and doing more excerpts of different books so that students can get more reading in different types of genres. So things like Lord of the Flies, she actually had like 45 copies. So she's like, I don't really need that many. And some of them are super, they are falling apart.
Whatever, as long as we're not banning books. It's just interesting that a lot of these are classics, and I understand the new education thing might not be to read books, but that's a fail in my view, so hopefully we're not just not gonna read books.
We do read. If you read Mr. Rothensberg's report, she is doing the reading, a lot more reading. But some of them we just have too many, some of them we don't have enough, and some of them, you know, are just things that are not maybe relevant that kids won't be engaged in. But she had like 3 or 4 bookshelves full of books, and she's like, I have no place to put anything else. So that's some of that piece as well.
I do believe her back storeroom was solid floor to
Yeah.
ceiling books.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there a motion to consider?
I'll make a motion to surplus English novels.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
I just want to point out that Macbeth is misspelled.
Thank you. I got that from staff, so we'll make sure we dispose of the properly spelled one.
Further discussion?
We're donating them or we're destroying them? What are we doing?
We could do either. Kids could take some home now if they really wanted to. Some of them might actually be so bad they're not worth it, and we'll just throw them away. I'm gonna let Miss Ellis decide.
Encourage to allow students to take them if
Yep.
they're interested.
Yep.
I may be able to facilitate donation of some of them also.
Okay.
Did you hear that? And does that clear that up, Russ?
Pretty much, yeah.
A vote. Jamie?
Yes.
Deb? Yes. Soren?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
Christine?
Christine, sorry.
Yes. SIA grant annual report.
So I prepared this for you. There's no action required by the board. This is informational only. We have to turn in the board minutes that this was presented to you. And so this is for last year's SIA. So this is not for this year's. So we have to answer 4 different narratives, changes in behaviors, action, or practices that you observed. So remember when we did the SIA grant, it was to pay for some adoptions, it was to pay for the family liaison, some RTI, MTSS process, and then enhancing college and career opportunities. So we are continuing to design and implement MTSS processes and procedures. Again, MTSS is multi-tiered system of our support system. We can also call it RTI. We are as we go through a lot of it. Yes, we have some to be in terms of staff, but a lot of MTSS is actually in terms of curriculum and different sort of avenues and how to help the kids, not just by staff, but by manipulatives and different curriculums that you can look at. We did integrate the family liaison. She also works with McKinney-Vento. If you don't know what McKinney-Vento is, it's the homeless piece. So that's how we identify students and families, because that allows us to give them more support. She's also been working with families for students deemed high risk for chronic absenteeism. Last year, there was an adoption of K through 12 ELA curriculum that aligned to the state standards. In my understanding, prior to that adoption, we were just kind of throwing stuff together in the ELA. So this allows us to have a common language and vocabulary. And then this allowed us to also enhance college and career opportunities through dual credit options through the Willamette Promise and LBCC. Both teaching in classroom and having students do online classes and go to Lynn Benton Community College. So number 2, what barriers? Obviously the barriers are, we still have to talk about the importance of aligning to state standards. When you don't do that for a while, people start getting willy-nilly. So we really have to train our staff that we don't just get to teach however we want because we think it's important. We have to follow the guidelines for the state. And when I say that, I don't want to say that we're taking away local control. However, we do have a high mobility rate both in and out. And so when students leave us, we want them to be successful wherever they go. And so really, how do we do that through a curriculum adoption and lesson planning? We train staff to align the lessons. How do we identify students for multi-tiered support system services? And how do we identify the skills needed for improvement? And then I think the big thing for us, really a challenge, is we have to continue to establish trust with our families, especially the families of our focal group students who happen to be students of color and students with disabilities. And then continuing to find meaningful ways to communicate with all stakeholders. If you remember when I presented the integrated guidance, we actually only had 2 families. And so how can we get families engaged? How can we communicate with them? And so that's something that I think is a huge challenge, especially for a school like ours that we're a charter school. We're pulling kids from, Albany to Eugene to Tidewater, Yachats. And so how do we make sure that we're getting them engaged? And then how do we do relationships? We're continuing to enhance our electronic communication tools. Last year, I think they tried to throw a bunch of stuff to see what stuck on the wall. So this year we're taking lessons learned and really trying to focus that. I think we're taking a more active approach. Please remember this was last year. So we had a public information officer last year who sent out information to different media outlets. And when I say information, positive information. And again, we're still having that low engagement, but I think we're doing a good job, and they did a great job last year to continue to work to establish that trust and cultivate relationships. And then what do we think about, what guided our choices and prioritization effort? I truly do think we have, and I don't think anybody is great at communication. There is no district in the state that could say we're amazing at it. I think for us, we really still need to continue to open lines of communication. So you all, if you are parents, you got to remind, and you're going to get so sick of remind because I have them all set up for like the next couple of weeks about like, remember, we have Thanksgiving. We've been putting stuff on Facebook. We've been putting stuff on our website. We have some things going out to Alsea Valley Voice. One of the things that we're really working on is we have a parent email, and we're working on getting a community email up and going. So we really want community members who really want to be a part of our school. Please email Nathan Roberts your email so we can get you on a community list. We had one big list, and then all of a sudden at the beginning of the year, we got a lot of people saying, my kid doesn't go to school there anymore. Can you just get me off this community list or the key communicators list? And so one of the major things on Synergy is we can actually sync our SIS to the email, so it's always updated. And so now we just need community members to email Nathan so we can get you on a community list. We do know when we have increased engagement with stakeholders, studies have shown that your student growth and achievement. So we really want people to be involved in how can we support all of our students. And then I think the second part is we really need to have a set curriculum. And with that curriculum, we really do need to implement PD. So it's one thing to have a curriculum. The next part is we need to teach our staff how to implement that curriculum correctly into the fullest of its ability. So those are the things that I think as we look forward to in the SIA, those are the types of priorities we're really working on, is communication and then implementing with fidelity our curriculum. And that is all I have for that.
Thank you. Any discussion, or sorry, any questions for Krista? All right. All right, OSBA conference report. I don't have a formal report except for that, I mean, everybody can speak up, but we did attend multiple sessions, and just to make it so that we could attend different topics, we actually kind of divided and conquered. So each of us, we're always going to have different interests, and so we kind of get drawn to the different interest areas. So for example, I went to finance because I'm not as strong in that, and I learned a ton in that space, so that was helpful. But the question kind of came out, there's a couple of things. So there's a couple boards that actually do like a work session before their board meeting. to kind of address what's going on in the community, or, talk through agenda items to understand better, and then actually be able to have a conversation, because we can't do that outside of a work session. It's obviously not meant to vote for or make decisions, but just to be engaged. So my question, I think, to the board was, do we want a work session to debrief some of the outcomes from the OSBA conference? Because it's hard to say, well, let's sit down and talk about this. We can't really do that with 5 people, because then we're in a quorum. And it does, and board business likely would come up, because you're discussing how an impact of a conference impacts our school. So we can't say that we wouldn't discuss board business in a quorum. That would be difficult. So we don't have to have a vote on it this evening. I just wanted to kind of open that up for discussion if anybody want to talk about it. I know we already have a work session coming up in December for our board evaluation. That might be something we actually tack on there in that agenda, because then we can decide on if we want to do work sessions or things like that, if that's.
It would actually be an appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do some debriefing and potential forecasting for things we want to review and bring to the table.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So Laura, would you be able to add that to our work session in December with Vince? Thank you very much. And that's all I had for that one.
What I wanted to tell you all is that I had numerous people from OSBA and ODE come up to me and say how happy they were to see Alcee back re-engaging. That they were happy that to hear your voice as board members. They want to support us as much as they can, and legitimately, I probably had 5 people say it is so great to see you guys here. We are so happy you guys are here. So I just want to let you know that your presence at this conference did not go unnoticed, and so yeah, it was great.
Well, since we're on the topic, I'd like to thank the community and the district for investing in us to allow us to be educated and get some fresh ideas and some fresh momentum for our community and our youth for their success. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you all for that piece of it. So next up is 6G regarding resolution 2405. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, Laura?
Russ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Yes. Jamie?
Yes.
All right. 6H. Sorry. Discuss date changes for January and February. So we have a couple board meetings in the January and February timeframe that selfishly they fall during basketball games. So one of them actually hits an away game, I think on January 11th. Yep. So January 11th is part of the conversation, and then February 8th is actually our home game, and it celebrates our seniors. So, selfishly, I think all of us board members should probably be at that game to celebrate our seniors, and it's hard if we're up here in a library. So just wanted to, I think there was some conversation about wanting to move both of those meetings in January and February to a date that didn't have conflicts.
What I will tell you is our games are mostly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I would suggest, if possible, that the board choose to meet either on Mondays are hard, but on a Wednesday. I'm just looking at the schedule for January. Wednesday, the only thing that would come about would possibly be junior high games, but right now, looking at the schedule, we would literally have a game every Tuesday and Thursday starting from January 9th through February 8th.
So
I'm open to Wednesdays.
Wednesday. So the Wednesdays directly preceding our board meeting that is set would be January 10th and February 7th. Are there any objections to moving the January and February meetings to those 2 dates, to January 10th and February 7th? motion and we're in action item, so.
I'll make a motion to move January board meeting to January the 10th and February's board meeting to February the 7th.
There's a motion. Any other discussion? Hey, Laura?
Sorry, I just got, is February 7th, the community dinner?
It is the first Wednesday of the
We
month.
actually are discussing.
So we can steal your time first then.
I lost your audio there. What? The first Wednesday is what?
January 10th and February 7th.
No, I
First
thought Deb
Wednesday
said something.
has been the Grange community dinner in the past.
Yeah.
It sounds like it may change.
Oh, okay.
Take the vote. Russ,
What was that?
how do you vote?
Oh, sure, that's fine. I still can't hear very well with that stuff, so I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Deb?
All right, we don't have anything in old business. Oh, sorry. We do have lots of things in old business. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we'll go into second reading though.
So on my
Oh.
board books, my first and second reading had nothing.
Sorry, my apologies. So we don't have anything in old business. We don't have anything in first business or first reading, but we do have stuff in second reading. So first up is policy BD/BDA board meetings.
I cleaned up the language from the last time, just so this is what it would look like on the website.
It doesn't really change.
No, so the only thing that it reflects is there was some laws that were passed, so it's just updated to ensure that we're following the law. And like they said in the first readings, even if you don't adopt it, you still have to follow the law.
I do appreciate the definitions at the bottom for all of us, community and board members. So, yeah. Is there a motion to consider policy BD/BDA? Your second. All right, any discussion on the BD/BDA board meetings policy?
I kind of want to just note that that one of the things you just mentioned about the law changes, it does say that we're now required to take training on public meeting law.
So yes, and so OSBA more than likely will come out with it, and my guess it'll be like a YouTube video that you'll have to just do. But yes, that is the new part of the law. I think the only way you didn't have to take the training is if you're a board of directors in a district whose revenue is less than $1 million, which pretty much means maybe 2 in the state of Oregon.
Thing I noticed that I had a question about it mentions that electronic and virtual means of doing the meeting are provided when reasonably possible. And I kind of thought that we had to do it.
I think that also means that like if we had an emergency meeting, not urgent, not a special session, but an emergency meeting. So say there was an earthquake and we couldn't do that, but we had to have an emergency meeting to give guidance, then we're not held to having to have a virtual meeting.
I do believe that as
Thank
well.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you guys trying to get rid of that sound, so now I can't hear you. You'll have to unmute. Ah, sorry.
Are we unmuted now? Yeah.
Yes. I'm like so frustrated, you guys. Like literally, this noise is ridiculous. So I'll vote whatever way you want. I'm ready to hang.
Don't say that out loud, Russ.
I think
But
you
I
can
just can't
abstain.
deal with it, you guys. I'm sick. This noise is like ridiculous. I can't like, I mean, if you were on my end, you would understand. I'm so frustrated. I'm like, I just put it on mute because I can't like, it's just nuts. So I can't believe anyone else is still listening because I wouldn't be. I'd be like, this is ridiculous. So there you go.
Okay.
That's my part. In fact, I'm just gonna leave probably, and you guys can just go without me on these because I'm like,
Okay.
it's really, I mean, it's I just can't hear. So.
Okay,
Thanks, Russ.
thank you.
We'll get it figured out. Let's get moving on.
Yep, so, there's a motion and a second. There's been discussion. Go ahead, Laura.
Yes.
Yes. All right, local wellness, EFA policy as well.
This one, it'll get a little bit more cleaned up. The stuff below the local wellness is required. We don't have it. That needs to go away. So Laura, can you make sure you update that? This, I will tell you, this is one of the findings on our food service audit, was that we did not have this policy. So
Say again, which we're gonna get rid of what part of this?
at the very top where it says required, it's in brackets.
Oh,
That should
okay.
not be there. So that will not be there when we put it on the website. My apologies. I didn't clean it up as well as I needed to. But yeah, so like I said, this is one that you have to have.
Motion to approve.
Just ESA, the SR means second reading. So just don't worry about the SR. Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Second. Great. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes.
I noticed in recent communication that came out that there was a stipulation put on home treats, homemade brought treats. Based on what I could find in this policy, it says like those outside things. It is what was the term? It was
Encouraged to abide by USDA.
So
where does that stipulation come in?
So I think it causes a lot of liability on the district to not have, this is my opinion, and I will tell you, it does cause a lot of liability. If it is not made in a commercial kitchen or store bought, it puts a lot of liability on the district. So I want to take it out and said, that they have to be either made in a commercial kitchen or store bought. I will tell you, when the teachers send stuff home, they say, please only send store bought stuff. So that was just something that was in there. You guys can say, no, we want that out completely. Like, it will only be.
I didn't.
Can you tell me what page that's on?
Well, I didn't see anywhere that it said we
So
could not allow homemade goods. That was my question. Like, where is the policy stating that we cannot have homemade goods brought to the classroom?
I wouldn't say, if you want to make a policy, here's the thing that I will tell you, my opinion on policies. You don't want policies to be too specific because then you paint yourself in a corner. That could be something, one of the things that, like, for example, a situation that I ran into is I had a parent in my previous district who I knew was a pastry chef, and she was like, Kristen, you know that I can make cupcakes better than the ones you can buy. So I was like, okay, but I have to try it first. And so, like, those types of things I think allow for administration to give a little bit of leeway. But if you want to put it in there in that way, if there's any issues, we can say, no, our district policy is this. I also want to say perhaps maybe it is, I don't know, Laura. I don't know if there is a law that got passed that said that.
My personal opinion, that's one of the nice things about attending post school is that parents still can have that kind of involvement in their children's classroom. I do, however, understand your liability perspective. I was just hoping to find, because I had seen the communication saying no homemade goodies store bought only, where that had
I want to say Mikey Law. It came about probably like 6-7 years ago. Maybe it was a USDA.
It kind of got tied in with the whole, we had to do healthy
I
snacks
think
and
it did
things
too.
like that because Otis Spunkmeyer cookies every Friday
that's where this policy that we're reading through says that it encourages it to meet the nutrition standards set. So that encourages.
I do.
See mandate.
But I don't disagree with you. However, I'm going to play the devil's advocate on this one. I think it becomes hard when a teacher goes, we'll let you do homemade, but you are not going to really do that. So I think in general, and I don't disagree with you, but I think it's one of those where now we're putting in I don't want to say discrimination, but I know you favoritism. And so I think it's a better way to do that. So we're not like, I don't really want it from your house. But again, there's exceptions to every rule. We've had parents much say, I really actually do want to make homemade. We just let them come in and use our commercial kitchen. And Kevin should just come in and bake it. And
I like that this is. I like that. It's still flexible. It says it's encouraged, so it's not mandated. But I do think operationally, the school gets to say what they want to see policy in there, because then it becomes your policy said if you let somebody come in and use the kitchen and that's against your policy. Teachers drive their class. That's my take on it. I think it does allow.
Jamie, I was thinking, it's nice to know that the whole rate it and then you start talking about liability. And should we see on that?
Well, and I just kind of think, yeah, and I just kind of think, like I said, I knew the mom was a patient. So I knew when she did it, she had the food handler's license. I mean, if you think about it, even like for our concession stands, you have to have so, I would say my opinion would be leave it up to the discretion and just in general policy.
Step is EFAAR. First reimbursement meals and milk program.
This was just the AR to, we have an EFAA, we just need the AR to be specific. I need to get a little bit more specific about what those. Ensuring also that we are. And this is kind of part of the audit. And I do think that this needs, so for example, if you're that just kind of like, so that way we're not allowing to just guess here that, oh, this is. I just say, like, if we don't qualify, it says, okay, this is where we're gonna follow the USDA. It just makes that language more. Gives some rights and confidentiality procedures. Which I will say, like, if you look on page 7 of the civil rights and confidentiality procedures, if you go onto our website,
Yes.
yes.
CBD. Family medical leave. Let's. Proposed policy.
This was an update. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This was a requirement.
Okay, so they have it as.
There was the only one that I saw
Oh,
on there
okay.
that said that, but this one is a requirement.
Okay.
Like it was like if you have more than 50.
That's good. That's good. So, you adjust the numbers too for Oakland.
Make a motion to accept policy GC BDA GD BDA.
Right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Discussion?
Yes.
Next up is the AR for GCBDA, GDBDA. Motion, is there a second?
Sentence that says leave period for the purposes of shall be.
I can go back.
It says leave period and it's it says
You are correct. So let me look at the first one. Try.
So it should say, however, in all instances, leave of shall be dependent on the start of any such leave, regardless of the district's designated leave period described.
Like he says.
It just says described above. So for example, if you looked above, it says a period of 52 consecutive weeks beginning on the Sunday immediately preceding the date on which the family leave commenced. Let me tell you why I wouldn't have to. I recommended it because if you looked at the bottom, beginning July 1st, 2024, districts are required to use the final bracketed option for the overflow. So when we talk about described above, for the purposes of calculating an employee's, and so I'm on the second reading. For purposes of calculating employees' leave period, the district will use the period of 50 consecutive weeks beginning on the Sunday immediately preceding on the date on which the family leave. Same method for calculating the 1 year period for overflow leave entitlement shall be used for all employees. However, in all instances, the leave period for the purposes of shall be dependent on the start of any such leave, regardless of the district's designated leave period as described above. So it's,
I think there's an extra word. Like I think the of should not be there. This is a leave period for purposes shall be dependent upon the start of any such
or it should say purposes of leave.
Just
Literally, that's
seems
literally what's in the first reading.
that's weird.
There's something missing from that sentence.
it literally just says of in the first reading. We can check on that for OSBA. But yeah, no, I'm going back to the first reading and that's what it says. So
It just
Yeah, we'll,
We missed
we'll,
it
we'll
the
ask them.
first
Maybe
one.
grammatically reads weird, but we can still approve it with you to.
and if it were mad, if it changes it tremendously, I'll bring it back.
Does that work?
One more minute.
Come on, Soren. That was not me, by the way. It actually in the first read says party day, so we'll have to check on that too. Yeah. We can ask, but in the first reading, it does say party day absence. It probably should say party day and it might be, but we'll.
Talking about our days.
Okay, so we'll clarify. And if it changes that, we'll come back for a first reading. But if it's just part day, then I will accept it. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
One of the things I liked about this that actually is clarified in our is that clarifies here that is not in none of our other policies nor in the CBA. It talks specifically about who you. I will tell you in a previous district that I worked in, that saved us a few times. Usually you see this in CBAs. It does not happen to be in the certified CBA, and we don't have a CBA. Right, so this really then is easy to go to when somebody comes and says, "Hey, I want this time off." We can be like, "And here's the definition." So,
Great, so there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
yes.
Yes. Next up is GDBDF. This is the paid family medical leave insurance. This is this paid leave Oregon?
Yep,
Yes.
this is paid leave.
Okay. Well, motion to consider.
Consider policy GCBDF.
I'll second.
Great, there's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Something that happened. That's what Krista said. Definitions. In the previous policy, just considered, there was a footnote that described definition of family members by affinity. And this policy also refers to family members by affinity.
Well, because it's an AR, it goes with the other policy.
This is not the AR. We're not in the AR yet.
So is that footnote?
Sorry,
Would be on the footnote of the other one of the AR?
So
AR of GCBDA, GDBDA.
So does the AR of the GDBDF
Here's
have that?
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I am very conscientious about changing this without like the party day. I can see, but I don't want to add language in because that could change the meaning of it. So if you guys want that, I will have to take it back to the lawyers and say what you think. I just don't think it'd be a good practice that we start adding things in that are not in there as.
well, and also paid leave Oregon is not it's not FEMLA and it's not OFLA. It is an Oregon leave. Well, it's a financial leave policy. So their description of affinity is actually anybody. So the OFLA and the FEMLA affinity is actually pared down to usually a relationship.
So it's not fair.
No, and the thing is we don't do Oregon. If you read the policy, the employees actually have to submit it to the employment department. Whereas OFLA and FEMLA, we actually get to administer. So that might be the difference.
So the one I do have one question on this, and I didn't see it called out here, but you just cross-eyed it wrong. But maybe it's in the AR, and actually, is this running concurrently? So when you take paid leave Oregon, are you running this concurrently with FEMLA OFLA?
I believe so. I do believe so. What I gathered everything is that you can run FEMLA and OFLA concurrently, or you can run it subsequently. But paid leave Oregon, yes, you can run it concurrently because, like for example, if have enough to pay or enough leave to cover the entire 12 weeks. Financially.
There was a section there, but they did say.
Right there.
Concurrently, and sometimes you get paid for the.
Because you can like, so for example, most districts provide like short-term disability. And so short-term disability would be on maternity leave, so you can get paid that plus the pay.
This says any family leave or medical leave. 3-4. Any family leave or medical leave taken under PLO must be taken concurrently
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
with any leave taken by an eligible employee under OFLA, FEMLA for the same purpose.
Perfect. I think that's how most places are doing it. I kind of wanted to be sure of that because
I do know that you can take OFLA and FEMLA back to back.
I know I saw it in there.
there's a question in a second.
Yes.
Yeah. How we pay it out and how the employees have to do their process.
Make a motion to accept GDBDFAR.
Any discussion?
Yes.
So what this is saying is that we, this goes back to the inter-district transfers. For the district or the charter school, of that percentage we can say no to. And this was in a we already have this policy. There's just some updates, so I figured we might as well do the updates. Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
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 Okay, board comments. I just have one from our board retreat or board conference. I have to take a minute to thank Krista for our district. Here's what I heard what I also heard back to Soren's statement they have a district office. They have all these people to go to these meetings. So she wears her sped hat, she wears her superintendent hat, a principal hat. She teaches sometimes, you know.
I know that I may have some potential ideas, but it's going to result in so I don't necessarily have anything right Guys, what email that's specifically about some of our materials, curriculum, and presentation, there were specific ones in the slide. Exactly. Chance to double check if we have a I think
Okay, we are going to continue to work on our website, and I think we're gonna pare it down a lot because there's a lot of stuff on it. So I will talk to Mr. Earl.
All right. So key dates. Monday and Tuesday, the 20th and 21st, we have parent teacher conferences. Thanksgiving break starts on Monday and goes through Thursday. So enjoy your Thanksgiving as a family and some time off. November 29th is going to be hearing screening and rescreening. We also have an OSU K through 8 field trip that day. I'm going to throw out there also that evening is our first home game for our basketball kids. December 5th, school board work self-assessment work session, and then December 14th will be our December board meeting.
I do believe at the December board meeting, we are gonna go over the start of the 2-year, and I do believe it's our audit has to be presented that day as well, so. Bring caffeine.
All right. With that, we'll adjourn at 21:27. Thank you, everybody.
Sweet spot of time.
We are, I was thinking that too, I was like, oh.